welcome everybody. Start off with our roll call. Yes, I'm here, David Ainsworth, Paul Bischoff, here, Caitlin Davey,
Here.
Michael Forster Rothberg will not be here, Gina Keel,
Present.
Catherine Pollock,
Here.
Sandy Bright,
Here.
and Mr. Davies will not be here. Okay, so first item on the agenda is approval of the May minutes. We did not have a meeting in June.
The minutes are fabulous. Move. Approve them.
Can I just ask a question?
Of
This is
course.
not- It's not about, it's just,
Well,
it's
let's-
kind of for you, but, you know, I can't remember. You brought up about the Suco car policy
Yeah.
and more cars and spreading into town. And we agree that encouraging the use of, public transportation is more important. Did we talk about how that was gonna happen? Or
No.
Was that just a suggestion to?
Observation, something.
Okay, so not anything very formal then.
And it was, I think it was related to the students in particular.
Yeah,
Public
yeah.
transportation, but I'm not even sure about that.
Okay, all right. I just couldn't remember, so.
Yeah. Instead of opening up that city road into the campus,
Are they gonna do?
that's in the facility master plan in the, after 5 years out. So, that's why we think, you know, a little preemptive. Yeah. I was wondering about
Since I
petition.
walk that way a lot, it just doesn't make sense to me, you know, it just doesn't make any sense, but.
And more trees are coming down, and so, you know, it's changing, yeah.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes from Commissioner Keel. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, motion carried. We do have, well, no petitioners here on the floor today. I do have one item of correspondence from Eric Colin Carroll, I believe you would pronounce that. And he emailed us asking about whether or not we would like to see the city invest in an air quality monitor. He said the closest one is Stanford. They're about $200 to $300 from an organization called Purple Air. They upload and update to Purple Air as well as Air Now, which is monitored by the EPA. He reached out to me. He CC'd Mark Davies as well on that. So
I saw air quality
Duly present.
for us, and I wonder where it came from then.
I think I don't know that we have a sensor. I think they just may do an aggregate of the area and guess, but.
This was, the data point on that.
Okay.
So I'm
Then maybe
wondering
we
if
do.
that's true.
Maybe we do.
The city invested in a lot of like smart city infrastructure. I don't know what all of the components are, but that might, I mean, I know they do sensors for a lot of things, so it'd be worth confirming. Maybe we could approve the suggestion and pass it along to, right, but, if we already have something, then we would need something that would be redundant.
Right.
But that would be good to know. Ultimately, it's DEC's responsibility for air quality stations, but those are, I don't know, for monitoring, maybe other things.
Where did you think you saw this?
Oh.
Cause my phone shows it. My phone shows it, but I don't know where it comes from.
It's a site, it's a government-based site.
Air quality, or air now.
Air
Dot
Now.
gov.
Air,
Right, is
that
one
must
of
be-
them. That's the one run by the EPA.
huh, so they're getting data from somewhere, I don't know.
I heard that they get it from Walton and Albany and Binghamton, but not Oneonta.
'Cause there was I was surprised because we were different than
Mhm.
Shell, you know, Shell. Interesting. It's worth looking into.
If you check different weather apps, they'll give you the air quality index, but it can be vastly different between, depending on where you look. So it would be nice to know what it's like, what it's for in Oneonta.
Mm-hmm. True.
The, air monitoring is one area that we've been sort of wanting and not have, a lot of expertise on our campus. So I don't think we were participating in this. I don't know if Hartwick, has any of that expertise. Seems to be a concern going forward. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not gonna, this isn't
It's
gonna be a
not going away.
one-off. You know,
It's
and it relates to burning things and transportation and other, air quality.
Yeah. Actually, with the transportation hub underway, it would be interesting if we had a monitor right downtown to actually see if there are moments of peak particulates, whether there's any correlation with
Yeah.
that.
Especially in a parking garage setting, with the
Correct,
buses
yeah.
idling and,
Sounds like we need multiple.
I know.
Get them all over town, right? Okay. Very good. Well, I'll get back to him and let them know.
did this person, other than a member of community, did they say anything about themselves and their
No.
interest or, okay.
No, but I can ask about that. Sure, great. Thank you very much.
Could I ask about the former petitioner and what, anything happened with
The
that?
No Mo May, you mean? That is, I have that on old business.
She was gonna go to zoning or something.
Oh,
You did,
reached
oh,
out,
okay,
yeah.
you did.
Yeah, so I can update you on that. The appropriate location, I guess. Let's see. No other correspondence that came to the city? Bonnie? Okay.
Nothing I'm aware of, no,
Very good, thank you. In the absence of Mark Davies, that brings us to committee reports, starting with urban forest, which is me. And I have been fairly lax. Lax, right. I have nothing current to report. I guess that's a good thing. I don't know.
everything's up
The trees are growing.
Trees are growing.
We've had plenty of rain lately. Yeah.
There was some planting event at the Wilcox house.
Yeah, that all took place back in April.
Oh, was that April? Okay,
Yeah.
May?
April already. Already. What, 3 months?
Well, we did
Right,
meet
they
last
put
night.
in an apple orchard at Fort Wilcox, and the DEC grant for the trees on River Street, I believe they've done their due diligence and flagged the street and located where they might want to put the trees. So that's all being headed by engineering, I guess, and that is underway.
And there was something, I think, on the council about having a fence around them.
Deer fence,
Around the apple orchard.
yes, because they're
Because we
concerned
were-
about the deer eating. Yeah, that ties right in with
Yep.
our thing.
Which we'll talk about later.
I don't think there's expected to be apples for at least a year or so, because part of the presentation is they were explaining the, removing the blossoms because they want all the energy.
The root development.
Mm-hmm.
That'll go a couple of years, don't they, or is it a year?
So you don't think the deer will be attracted if there's no apples?
Couldn't say, but they won't be eating,
They have plenty to eat, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Very good. Let's see, community engagement.
I have also been lapsed and lax. So, Gina, if you've been posting anything?
Well, here and there, yeah.
I know, I think, Catherine, you asked me to post something about a deer reporting monitoring thing. I haven't forgotten it, so I've done it yet, so I have to dig that up.
Well, we sent that forward to the council too, so,
Okay.
I guess we can talk about that more in a minute, yeah.
Yeah, that's,
I think what we mostly wanted was, like things about planting.
okay.
You know, we put together a brochure about plants that they won't
Well,
eat versus
deer-
ones they will.
resistant,
Yeah.
there's
Digital
nothing.
file, or-
Did I not send
DC
that?
has one too, I think, right?
The New Jersey one is really good.
There's a very extensive one. Ours is not so extensive, but we put it in a brochure.
It depends on where you live anyway. Where I live, it doesn't matter.
I know.
It's gotta be
But part of the,
boxed
we're kind of
off.
getting ahead of things, but part of the plan
Yeah.
was to encourage people to do things to mitigate.
Yes,
And one of
yes.
them is not planting things that you know the deer are gonna eat.
It's a target, sure, but we can
Okay,
swing
sorry.
around to that.
Sorry, it all kind of overlaps.
On
Yeah,
communication,
sure.
I did have a question and, for discussion a little bit. We have a very active City of the Hills event coming up, some other ones. Do we wanna have any kind of environmental presence table, or, especially if you're putting together something on deer, or we wanna put something together on the 2030, or, this is places we could share it with the community. So the City of the Hills Fest, I think, is in September.
I personally don't have the capacity to represent at any of these events, but it's a great idea. We're partnering with organizations that have staff or volunteers.
You know the date on that specifically?
No, I don't know. It's-
Something like that, because I know I'm not.
But the materials, perhaps, of there's anything coming out of the report, or,
Well, I think the deer
you
management.
know what I'm saying,
committee-
just like a basic, here's some things we've done.
I think there is,
Well, there's that, yeah.
I think the good point I'd like to talk to, I'm not sure who's doing the city's social media, but there's so many items in the report that should be highlighted and celebrated, that each kind of warrants their own
Yeah.
posting.
Destination Oneonta, there's a group of folks in there, really. And the City of the Hills has their own team too. Impressive folks. If we give them content, they put it out there too.
For sure.
Well, when we were trying, when the deer management committee was trying to get information out, we had stuff to, we could have a table probably, right?
Yeah.
And include stuff from the board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What we've been up to, sure.
yeah, because I think we have a banner or something.
Register some
Yeah,
folks to vote
Betsy
too,
has the
right?
banner, yep. We had a banner made.
I'm sorry, Bridget.
It could be broader, city table, register people to vote, maybe they have some information, somebody to answer some questions, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Mhm.
And I was thinking the same thing, you could have, a few different highlighted areas, the environmental and deer, maybe one, and,
The parks have been upgrading a bunch of stuff too, the, basketball courts and, I don't know.
So we need like physical like printed assets to either give away or display in some way, and we just have this kit at the ready so that as these events come on, and we can get the volunteers, then they're great for each time. But who?
Yeah.
Is this something that we need to, coordinate with city elected officials or city staff, or just represent as a
Probably someone on the council, we should probably be connected with them.
or talk to Judy, and that would be like community type stuff. I'll be communicating with her soon, but I can include this in that unless you want to.
Thank you.
Gets it started anyway, yeah.
I could spend some of the time at the table, we could probably recruit a few people, I mean, yeah. Oh, should I have?
Exactly.
Okay, City of the Hills.
Are we good on community engagement now?
Yes.
Great. Energy.
No report.
Transportation.
I don't know if I said this last time. There's, again, a potential for grants to further a low emission, no emission vehicles, including school buses. So, the, coordinating with, not just OPT, but also the schools seems to be something that should do as we go forward on transportation.
There was an item from the report that hadn't been addressed that was, one of the ideas was that the city should have a no idling policy, and it seems like that didn't go anywhere, so I didn't know if that was worth revisiting.
Yeah, we talked about that a while ago. Problem ultimately is also enforcement. If we can the best way to do it, any policy is people have to know about it. And then they have to conform. Because enforcement, we got no resources. I don't know. It drives me nuts. We've got one on campus, but is not enforced, so what good is it? But seems to get worse. So, if it's no idling for health reasons versus, people get annoyed on Main Street, I know, when the trucks, like some of the small businesses are like, "Oh, look at that damn truck."
I think
From
that
idling.
rule is really important, and I wonder, like, even short of enforcement, if maybe just like, racks, card size thing, in someone's windshield or something, like these are reasons that you shouldn't idle.
Yeah.
Or just something to educate people so that they can make an informed choice.
Mhm.
For some people choose to still idle, and that's, their prerogative, but at least nudging them in the right direction.
For health, the trucks are the worst offenders, anything with the diesel. It could be a sign, if it's a Main Street problem or Mark's, signage,
If there's any pre-existing resources that would be something we could print out, or is this something that would need to be recommended to the council to consider an ordinance, or is this just citizen-led campaign? Because I don't think it's actually legal to put things under people's windshield wipers and distribute whatnot, but maybe there's some, short of.
I think it is, it's just free speech, but if we do it as a government body, then it's not, then it's problematic. Maybe, but,
So it's an open question, because it was part of the Oneonta 2030 plan was to pass a no idling policy, and that was something that hadn't gained any traction.
Mark might have some knowledge about it too. The, Steve Yearly, I would be interested in his opinion, and people that would have to make it happen. They don't want to enforce parking stuff, they just don't have the resources for that.
And an interesting thing I see, and it's kind of a double-edged thing, but people on my street, I mean, I don't know why they do it in front of my block, but people pull over to talk on their phones, which is good. That's a safety thing, but they keep their cars going while they're talking on their phones. I don't know what you do about that, but that's an idling thing that I've noticed that is right in front of my house.
Well, and even I myself need to idle for a minute or two to, get my Bluetooth and speaker
Yep.
and everything to talk to.
All that is true.
Outside the Bugby School, people go and drop their kids off and leave their cars running. They're gone, 5+ minutes. So maybe institutions could help if it's a situation like that, saying, hey, parents, don't do this. Main Street, I think it's in the interest of the businesses and commerce, and it's come up before, and I wonder if the council folks.
And even if trucks shut their motor off, they still have, the refrigerator trucks still have diesel engines that run the refrigerating system, and they have to keep running.
Yeah.
So that might be what we're hearing a lot too.
Hearing is one thing, it's the smelling it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed. Okay.
Something to think about.
It is. And that could be something that, if we do have a table at the City of the Hills event, that could be some stickers we hand out or
Yeah,
something,
link it.
brochures, right?
Link it up to this, bad air quality. Did you not like that? Here's why we shouldn't contribute to it with idling.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Air quality is a problem. Here's what you can do to help.
Mhm.
it is. Definitely is.
PS5 EV. Or hybrid, which.
Shut the car off.
Yeah.
All right.
Electric vehicle.
All right, neither of the public spaces individuals is here at the moment, although I did get forwarded an email on that, and I don't want to steal their thunder, but I won't reveal anything, but the Oneonta Environmental Club does have a name for one of the creeks, so things are happening. But I won't say any more until,
But there's some progress.
no, it's good, there is good news.
Good, good.
There is progress. All right, which brings us to old business, and I still have this bundled into one thing apparently, but you have nothing to report on the 2030, and that's fine. Just want to remind you, I guess, that we had a discussion once upon a time about restructuring, renaming some of our committees so that it makes more sense and is perhaps more closely aligned with what we're doing. sort of sort these things out, but just, come up with a draft of a meaningful committee structure. If we like it, we can adopt it. If we want to tweak it, we can tweak it, but that'd be great.
So, a few months back, was it Chris who was here with an intern who was working
Yes.
on the climate smart stuff?
But subsequent to that, after Steve dug through some of the fine print, he decided it would be easier after all, and more in keeping with the language of regulations, that there's a single employed point of contact for continuity's sake, as opposed to volunteers on a board that switches over every few years. So he's keeping it in-house, and I certainly said we're absolutely willing to pitch in and help and coordinate and apply any leverage we might have to apply if he needs it, if we're interested in it. But
So does that mean
But
he's
he's
not gonna be
he's-
reporting back to us at all? I mean, we get any
I haven't
information
heard
about
a
it?
thing since, but we, doesn't sound like that's a committee we need to build at this point.
Okay.
Tree ordinance, I just would have to reiterate my previous report. Nothing has happened in the last month and a half to report on with the tree ordinance. Except one thing I might want to add to the draft as it goes forward, and this occurred to me while walking my dog at one point, that I don't believe, I'll have to review the draft, but there's no language regarding enforcement for people who break the rules. We have plenty of language of what they're obligated to do with any sort of building project, et cetera, et cetera. But speaking of people cutting down trees, I read an article last month about a homeowner in New Jersey that cut down 40 or 50 of trees on his neighbor's property so he could have a view of the skyline.
Oh my gosh.
And that town actually has an ordinance and it was private property, so it was damages that could be, sued for. And it was several $1 million this guy was on the hook for improving his view. And I was thinking, we need to just have a couple lines in there about, because we have plenty of language. If you have to cut a tree down for a project and there's no way around it, you have to replace in kind. But for those people who damage trees and, break the law in the process, perhaps just a few sentences of language of what that would actually mean in terms of legal ramifications. Do we just, and this will be in coordination with legal counsel of the city, but do we just prosecute for damages based on the financial value of those trees, or that seems to be the most logical thing, but a few words of clarifying language might need to go in as time goes by. But
So does that go to code enforcement, following up on that stuff?
it's not code per se. I mean, the tree ordinance is, from my understanding, would be city law. So that has to go through all the proper channels to go on the books as one of our laws.
So then the police.
Right.
And can you remind me, this is only for municipally or trees on municipal?
Yeah,
It's not
That
private
was a
property.
private property. I thought it was going to be a bridge too far, so I just kept it to publicly owned
So if
spaces.
somebody damages
Right.
or cuts down a city tree.
Exactly. If somebody cuts down your tree, then that's on you, I guess, if you want to sue that person. So that's where I am thinking about the tree ordinance at this moment. But I just need to forward it
Is there
next.
kind of any kind of vandalism statute damaging
There would-
city property?
I think we actually had a tree damage a couple months ago, didn't we?
Oh, we've had several on my block kicked
Which is
down.
very recently, right?
In the last few years, yeah. There are 2 trees that are just
Yeah.
gone because somebody did that.
So that would be good if we had something as part of this ordinance. What does it mean if somebody decides to knock a tree down on us?
On the other hand, you never see who's doing
It's
it.
enforcement, right?
That's
You have to
probably-
Unless
catch
you run
them.
into it in a car.
Right. right, or get it on social media and post it.
Yeah.
Most of the time what you see, that you know that somebody's come along, you kicked it down,
Sure.
or they've broken it, you know, that's what I
Swing
see.
a
That's,
branch and their joy.
yeah, that's the kind of damage I see.
Exactly. On to No Mow May. I did reach out to Mr. Yearly about adjusting city code for that and was informed that it's actually a state law.
Yeah, interesting.
So what it would not require a code change on our part. It would require the city to direct Stephen Yearly not to enforce that regulation.
Oh,
So
wait,
that's
is
how
the
it
state law to mow?
Yes,
Oh, to
10
mow.
inches. It's state regulations requires
Ah, at 10
lawn
inches.
speed no higher than 10 inches. It's not a zoning issue, it's a state requirement.
But the enforcement would fall on the city, so if
City
the city
falls
doesn't
in-
want to enforce it, then it doesn't
Exactly.
happen.
So basically, we would have to put through a request not to pursue that door.
Or patent variance code or something.
Devil's advocate though.
Sure.
Did you guys get the email from Susan Les
I did.
with the article
Yeah.
advocating against no mow May?
Mhm.
It was interesting. It was
It
interesting
was,
that
yeah.
there were arguments against it.
Yeah, and I
which
can
can't
certainly see
remember.
them. It was partly, it wrecks your lawn. It's really hard for the lawn to come back from that. It encourages ticks, it encourages invasive plant species. So, it sounds like such a great idea, but
I
I
know.
think it would be better to encourage people to plant native flowering plants for the pollinators.
That's a good.
To quote Stephen Yearly, he would prefer that nobody had a lawn. That was on.
Native ground covers, another thing that can help
Exactly.
inform the community
I
about.
think
Here's
that's
some
exactly
options.
what he had in mind.
Yeah.
You know, there are some
We have
people in
one here.
town who don't have lawns, that they
Mhm.
have completely filled their lawns with perennials mostly,
Yeah. It's great. It's beautiful.
as long as the deer don't want
Right.
them. It's always a yin and a yang, right?
Of
But
course.
the, closing the loop with the petitioner, do we have to do that?
I think I'll reach out to her and,
Unless you're.
I guess, do we still, as a board, want to ask the city to embrace this? Is that still where we are? Do we want to ask the city not to enforce that requirement?
I guess I'm a lot more ambivalent than I was in the beginning. I was all for it.
Mhm.
We did that.
I think in
But-
order to hold that ambivalence, it would be nice to not punish the very few people that choose to
Mm-hmm.
not mow during May, but then also maybe not promote.
Promote it,
mowing
yeah.
in
That's a good
May.
point.
Lomo.
Lomo.
That's what I like,
Yeah, it's
Lomo.
part of it too,
I
is,
mow,
yeah.
yeah.
It's the
Right.
cutting grass.
Raise your
yeah, that's-
raise your
that
mower
high, It's
rates.
like wear and tear on the machinery
Well,
too,
that's
it's
it,
harder
yeah.
to do,
Right.
maybe there's like more gas involved to do it, or it means
You have to
that
cut it 3 times to make
the
Yeah.
machinery has to be replaced more often and whatnot, so.
Well, that's where my husband ended up saying no more, because we had a brand new a battery operated mower, and he was worried it was gonna ruin it because it was so high. So, anyway.
But for the people who choose that, it would be a shame if they were.
Right, it's just a question of not enforcing it, and that's all we need to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Do they only enforce it when someone complains? That's the other, I think that's kind of what that is.
I don't think so.
Someone had
did
some
say
laws
something
that
about
didn't
complaint.
get a ticket.
Priority.
Because didn't she say somebody had gotten ticketed for that?
Yeah, but if your neighbor complains,
If it's-
then
yeah.
code enforcement acts, same with
Yeah.
parking and other things, sort of.
Right, it requires some.
And if it's
Yeah.
state law, can we really say, should we really be encouraging something that's against state law?
Mm-hmm.
I like your idea. I think it's a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
compromise.
Yeah.
It
Don't
sort of requires
encourage it,
action.
but,
Mhm.
yeah, but,
It seems fair.
yeah.
So, what's the consensus here? Table it for the next month?
Encourage non-enforcement
Okay.
but not publicly encourage no mow. No
And,
mowing.
and encourage, continued public education on lawn alternatives
Yes.
and native, ground covers and such, wildflowers. Johnny Jump Up should be good.
Yes.
Say those.
They're so cute.
Okay, I'll draft an email and just share it with you, so I have a good representation of where we are.
'Cause the petitioner seemed pretty hot too, so.
Oh, she was,
we need
yeah.
to be, fully responsive.
I think she's also very passionate about the pro argument, but might not fully be aware of the against arguments.
Although the pro argument and the movement itself comes from OCCA, which is run by biologists and ecologists and, people that are scientists. So I wonder that the contrary evidence is maybe also overblown.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good
So,
point.
so we don't.
If it were deregulated, OCCA would probably take that information and run with it publicly, but then it's not on the city to handle it.
Relax enforcement during.
Relax.
Slow relax.
Right.
So,
great.
I mean,
Can't we all be happy it's spring?
Go lay in the ground.
But
Just
I
watch
like,
the deer.
Sandy said too, encouraging people to plant pollinators, that's a good thing.
Yeah. It's the raking, the overzealous raking that's as much the problem too. These things are decomposing. Yes.
is there a state law about that? I imagine.
That would be a bit of an overreach, wouldn't it?
Okay.
Loopy.
Kathy and Sandy, what do you have for us?
Well, we've got two parts to our report. And the first part, very simply, you probably all know, the click forwarded our plan to the council. They voted unanimously to accept it. So the plan is somewhere. I haven't really found out, we haven't had a chance to find out what happens next. But we have a very specific plan with timelines, and the council approved it, so hopefully we'll start to see things. And part of the thing that came up toward the end was this recommendation that the city set up some kind of reporting system for deer incidents, where people can call in or email or whatever to let the city know what the problems are and where they are. And that's more evidence for moving up to a higher level of intervention. So we have 3 levels of intervention. And the more evidence that we get for the damage and the problems, the more we can move forward to the higher levels of intervention.
What's the threshold are you thinking for this damage? I mean, I'd be calling every day, probably.
Well, we did put in that you could probably only call once. You have to put your name.
My hostas have been tripped.
Well, yeah,
Again.
so, I mean, to go on record that your property is one of them, and your name and address would have to go along with it, so they know where that is. I think deer signs, I suspect there's a lot more deer people interactions than we know, because they don't get reported anywhere.
Nobody knows where to report
Nobody
it.
knows, right.
The
So-
DEC claimed that there were very few reports from Oneana. How many of us would call the DEC if a deer had a problem in our yard?
Well,
That's
but
not
also,
what-
if you hit the deer in the city, who do you
Right.
tell?
Yeah,
The only place you would tell is your insurance company.
yeah.
So, I don't, I suspect there's more incidents of that, but we need to know that. So I think that's a really important thing. And I guess the one other thing that was discussed about it, and I don't know where the city is about it, but that they talked about having somebody, I think, a city employee, in charge of the deer management plan. Is that your understanding?
I think that that's what they were going toward.
Not necessarily managing the hunting per se, but handling the plan. So, do you know anything about
I
that?
think that
No.
would be, and everybody seems pretty unwilling to take on more. They're all pretty
Well, I
pretty
think,
busy.
but I think it has to be, in the city, somebody in the city has to be managing it. So I think that's what was in part of the plan, I think. But I'm not totally sure about that. I believe that was what was recommended. You know, somebody, now, that's, again, that's just overseeing the plan, that's not necessarily overseeing the hunting part.
Right, that's DEC.
Maybe, but I mean, there are certain levels of permits that that hunters can apply for, property owners can apply for, the city can apply for. 3 different levels. The DEC issues those permits, but they don't oversee the actual hunting. So if it got to the level of the structured hunting, then there would need to be somebody who managed that piece of it, who could be a volunteer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of levels to this plan, a lot of pieces of information that, and I have to just credit to our committee. I mean, we had a great bunch of people that worked really well together, very cooperatively. Everybody contributed, and we met very regularly. We started a year ago in August, and it's just now coming to fruition. And quite honestly, when I brought this up a year and a half ago in February, I never thought it would get to this point. I really
It's
didn't.
taken on its own life, hasn't
I
it?
really never thought it would get to this point, because everybody said, oh, we've tried that before, it can't happen, but we had a really great committee, yeah.
Persistent.
Yes, yes, and we did so much research and so much delving into things. Anyway, enough said about that, but Sandy has a really exciting thing to talk about.
Okay, our task force has received a mini grant to build a couple of deer exclosures. And what they are is just a small fenced-in area that keep the deer out, and they allow you to see what could be growing in that area if the deer were not eating it all the time. I and probably a few other members of the committee are going to be meeting with Donna Vogler on Thursday and doing a little walk to plan a couple of locations for these. Once we do that, then we need to get permission to build them. Probably one will be in Wilbur Park, and we felt another good location would be up near Old Main Apartments, because there's a big population of deer that move through that area. So, you know, first, we've got the grant, we'll plan the locations, we'll get permission to build them, and then I go to Home Depot and buy the stuff, and we'll get it done.
Build on city property?
These are very small. These are only maybe like 5 feet, a circular 5-foot area. I mean, some of them, if you were doing a scientific study, you might build one as big as this room or bigger. But these are very simple, just some posts, some fencing around it.
I mean, obviously, we have to get permission from either Parks and or Chris Yakabuchi. You know, we.
But if it's, that would be city property, but if you were talking about private property.
This is, well, we have to figure out good locations, who owns it. One of them, I'm quite sure will be Wilbur Park, so that would be city. So yeah, we have to, that's a big part of it, is getting the permission to do it.
And Vogler did this on campus by one of the dorms, and I don't know the outcome ultimately, but she had that fenced-in area and the students studied it. Yeah.
Lower Wilbur, they're always in that stretch.
Yeah,
True. And it's also a place where people would see it, so it's an educational thing too.
and there's a sign, there would be a sign on each one explaining to the public what these are, so.
The area you're talking about by the apartments, the deer, I live up in that area, so the deer come on what is path that the city does own that cuts between private property, and that's their path.
Yeah.
But it's forested, so you can't really see what the damage is, except if you're talking about baby trees maybe. But, so that was the other thing, with the location of it, the impact of, and how that ties to.
Right, and would people see, because you can't really get into that area easily, there's a fence, I know.
Or you can, but it's a little bit, you know.
Right.
Right.
But, I know that Tom Travisano, who is on our committee, lives on State Street, right across from Bugby, and we talked about this, I think, they were eating some, or he thought they were eating trees right up in a little triangle that was between the parking lot
Yep.
and the pathway. You thought they had been taken down.
They did, except for one, and it's barely alive. It's got
So that might be
leaves on it.
another place where people would see it as well.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, it's just a thought. Because I think it's a really good educational tool to help people be aware.
What's the timeline, how long will these enclosures be monitored, do you think?
Oh, they'd be there for several years, an ongoing thing, and
Okay.
the hope is that they show what could grow if the deer weren't there, and that you start seeing some of those plants in the surrounding area as the deer problem, hopefully, fingers crossed,
Diminishes.
yeah.
Right.
I think
But
that's
thank you
it.
to you guys for being willing to support my crazy idea to move it forward, and to the clique for being willing to take it up, and from Mayor Drennick to putting the committee. Yeah.
Any new business?
Just one more, on that. Ultimately, I think that part of this was based on the public health concerns about ticks and the spread of Lyme disease, and wondering if we should also be looking at, incidents of Lyme disease. As I know Otsego County is one of those kind of hot spots, but it seems like populations might do this and Lyme might also do that. And that should be part of the consideration. You're talking about years.
No, you're right, and part of our proposal had data in it where the county health department broke out for Oneonta and showed a huge increase over the past couple of years in Lyme disease. Huge. I can't remember the exact
Although,
numbers.
do they get it here or the people that live here get it somewhere else?
Well, you know,
That's the other
that's a
thing.
good
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
I don't know. But the fact is that there was a huge increase in reported Lyme cases that came from Oneonta, however they got it. And if we show a decrease in that, then that may also show some positive impact of the program.
And anecdotally, I'll tell you, they're getting it here, because I know a bunch of people who have Lyme disease or have had it recently, and they know they got it here. Backyard, gardening, whatever.
But you're right, I mean, it's hard to know. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Enough.
New business?
Well, maybe. And I'm just gonna toss this out, I'm not really sure where I wanna go with it, or if we wanna go anywhere with it, but, I just saw a really fascinating show on TV about composting in Brooklyn. And it connected to community gardens. But the city of Brooklyn actually picks up compost every week from people's houses. Now, I said something to Mark Davies about this, and he said the issue was that we have a lot of different haulers here. But I don't know, just to me.
If you're interested in compost, people have been working on this one a lot, for a
Well,
long time.
I heard that he'd been here before in this committee, this board.
Well, there are people in the county that, and so it's an ongoing how to solve issues. I would refer you to Paul Ward, who's at the biological field station and also a professor biologist. And this is one of his absolute passions. And he's been pushing the county to have a facility and sort of trying to put together all those pieces. So whether or not we could ever have curbside is a question, but the office, that's the county office, you know, they sold the bins, they had an initiative. I bought some bins myself for that, so they've had some composting initiative to try to get households to do it, but a municipal facility, Paul Ward.
Well, but when you had those bins, what did you have to do with them? You
Oh,
had
I
to
just
take
go and
those
buy them
somewhere.
and pick them. I do it myself, I have my own pile.
Backyard.
Oh, so you just keep it in your yard?
Yes. And I
Okay.
use it in my own garden. So, we can, you know, it might be how we do this, we get people to do it in their community gardens and then over time, but the curbside is wonderful, but it's a hard one to do.
So I'm thinking for me, you know, I don't really want to have to take it somewhere. want someone to take it from me and do something with it. But I realize that's but I don't know. I'm just sort of throwing out the topic if anybody has any thoughts or wants to pick up. And the other thing connected to that, so I was talking to Celia Reed, who runs the community garden, and she was saying that she thinks there ought to be more community gardens in town. And if they were located more in different neighborhoods, like if I had one down the street, I wouldn't mind taking my composting there. I wouldn't mind doing that, but I don't know. Does that fall under us, community gardens?
I believe that Parks and Rec manages
Parks
that
and Rec.
in cooperation with the committee. But we did speak at length about composting initiatives, of course, in our report. So
Oh.
I believe that there is you can drop off your composting at Silas Lane transfer station, and because there is, the city did write a grant to get a county composting facility at Sewer Sand and Gravel. So a lot of the green waste and food scraps and whatnot are being trucked out there through a series of agreements. But also did in Binghamton, one of my classes did a survey of 800 households to get the pulse on composting there, and most people were in favor of getting the education and the bins to home composting and or having a local place to drop it off, like a community place to drop it off. It could be separate from a garden. The logistics of getting a hauler to do it, like you have to store it X amount of time, and then you have to, so the hauling infrastructure isn't really quite set up, but some places, maybe not Brooklyn, but other cities, there's just in Philadelphia, and they have private haulers, so it becomes a business model where they, a private business would then, charge you like $18 a month to collect your compost, and then they would do whatever with it. So there are a lot of different models. I would caution against trying to advocate for haulers to take care of that. There's other ways.
True, but on the other hand, if the city is picking up my green waste once a month, can they not pick up composting as well?
I suppose that could be a question. It becomes like the storage of it. If you're not actively composting yourself, then it's just like rotting food scraps sitting around attracting.
Fair amount of infrastructure, I would
And
imagine,
it's,
to make that work.
if it sits, it stinks.
Yeah.
You gotta work that in right away.
But as to having like community sites or other community garden sites, I've been talking to Parks and Rec. I'm not sure who's on the citizen part of that committee, but I think it's a cooperative effort to run the community garden that exists.
Okay.
But there is a waste coordinator in Otsego County with an office and a staffed, former student used to run it, but he moved on.
Also giving scraps to neighbors or somebody who's composting, connecting somebody who's
Yeah.
actively composting, and you wouldn't have to do it, but it would be used.
Another strategy is to get the big institutions to do it, so, campuses, been pushing on that one, hospitals, so you get big institutions, and maybe extend that, what the city's got with Seward, would be another approach.
I guess I was looking at it from a very personal level, that I throw away a lot of food. I mean, scraps and stuff. I just throw it away, and it goes into the trash. And where else could it go that it might be better utilized? But how does that become easy for me as an individual to do it? If I don't want to compost myself, and if I don't
It is
want,
really easy.
is it? Well, maybe
You just need like a 3x3.
well, maybe I should learn
And
to
a
do that.
shovel.
Yeah.
Well, and what are people willing to pay? So, could you support a system of collection? Most people, they want it easy, but they're just not willing to pay $20 a month.
We don't pay for yard waste pickup, right?
Well, you pay ultimately.
Right, but not directly.
When they pick up the yard waste, they've just got one big dump truck or one big
Right.
truck that they throw it in. And for the compost, you'd have to have places for all those buckets. That would be a separate pickup.
Well, I know it's complicated. I wish it were easy, but I'm just putting it out there because you never know where something's going to go.
Well, people have been working on it, so talk to, that means you do want it.
So
Join
Paul
the
Lord
group.
is who? Where? Who's he?
Professor, biological field station in Cooperstown, or you can get him through, campus email, so probably paul.lord I don't know to, he's a former Marine, he's a little gruff, but he's a wonderful human. So, he'll bend your ear, about how tough it's been to probably, move on this, but he, he's been working on it forever.
I worked for the Army for 4 years.
Yeah, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I know how to talk.
Students call him the Lord.
Okay, well, I'm not necessarily saying I wanna do anything for, I'll pursue some of this maybe, but, I just wanted to see what people thought. And I know Mark had said that this had come up in the past. Were you on the board?
We've had presentations from the, on recycling, on waste management here. So if we're interested in that, people can come and talk to us,
Okay,
like the coordinator.
okay. Were you on the board when that happened? No.
No, hopefully so.
So you're our institutional
Oh,
memory.
that's scary.
Okay, thank
Well,
you.
Mark, if Mark was here, he would know that.
Yeah, he told me, yeah. Okay, thank you.
There is no further business. I call this meeting to adjourn.